Hi and welcome to Fantasy Footy Fan Jeff here. So, carnage. It's the only word we can use for this last round, round 8. It was horrible, and there were teams ranked in the top 5 that that got scores of under 2,000. It was such a terrible round. But obviously, if you didn't have some of these players that got injured, you might have been able to move up in your rank. Maybe if you had some pods in your team, you didn't have obviously some of these main players like Yo and Green and Rosie and etc. Fife even. Unfortunately not the best. But looking at my team for the round, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be. I scored a 21.46, and I just thought I'm going to drop pretty bad in rank. But then I looked at some of the teams in my league, and they were ranked, or they had scored a lot less than me. So finally, when the lockout lifted, to be able to move up in my overall rank, I didn't expect. The 21.46 is not great. Being ranked 27k for the round generally means that you'll drop in rank. But what that shows is that those who were ranked in that top 5k overall probably had a lot of these players. And so they more than likely did drop a little bit. So I went up 366 spots and I'm ranked 83.53. 8,353 overall. I'm pretty happy with that, especially when you have a look at my team and how badly it was impacted. I'm pretty happy with that, I have to say. So quickly going through my team. So firstly with my trades, in the end I decided to go with Dempsey to Rogers. I wasn't confident in bringing in Rogers. He's a bit of a forward pocket, half forward type play. He got that 98, looked great, but we're not getting that every week from him. But I still went with Rogers from Dempsey to get some cash, and I went Cadman to Sweet to get some cash, but also to get Sweet in, which most of us did. And then that allowed me to upgrade from Powell to Bontempelli. And I was really happy with that because I've been wanting to get Bont in for a while, and Bont had dropped like 100k. He was, even though he had his break even at 128 or something like that, I think it was. He was playing against Hawthorn, and I just had a feeling that he was going to achieve that break even, and he did in the end. So yeah, pretty happy with getting Bont in, and that really did save my team getting his 142. So looking through my team just very quickly, Dacos, most of us have 150, gets that winning goal at the end of the game, and that boosted his score. Sheasel playing in the midfield, that did hurt, but he is a top 6 defender either way. So if you don't own him, he's got a break even of 168. You're going to get him now under 600k, and that is great for any non-owners. And then Yo scored an 80 still, but yeah, had that groin injury. Adam Simpson said it was a minor groin injury, but he could still miss one week or 2 weeks. But he is a top 6 defender. So for myself, I am going to be holding. I do have bench cover at this stage. That's hopefully if Closey and Graham still play. But yeah, we'll see anyway tomorrow when the injury report comes out. Wangani Malira, brought him in the last couple of weeks. He's had 2 bad scores, but to get a 115 out of him, I was obviously really happy with that. That really did help my team out. And then Closey and Graham, I got to watch this game, the Brisbane Gold Coast game, and Gold Coast were terrible. Closey was really bad, and it was a gamble for me because I didn't know whether to play Closey or Graham, because as you can see, I loopholed McKercher on the ground. So I had to take either Closey or Graham out, and I thought Closey, he's got the higher ceiling. I kept him in, and of course I lost 16 points as a result. But I think obviously in future, because I got to watch this game, Graham definitely looks like the better player. So hopefully in future, if I need to keep one of them on the field, it'll probably be Graham in future. Moving up to a midfield, obviously happy with Sarong's score, 137, Bonton 142, really helped my team. Dawson, now he wasn't looking good up until half time, but he had a 69-point second half, and that got his score to a respectable 94. we're going to get scores from him every now and then, but I'll be riding him out to the very end of the year. And then if I've got some trades and I can upgrade, I can maybe look at upgrading him, but I'm still pretty happy with him. He'll still score quite well. Same with Miller. It was a pretty tough game for Gold Coast. They did not look good. I think aside from Flanders, there was no one else, or maybe even Powell, there was no one else that just really looked impressive at all. And Lukosius looked absolutely terrible, incidentally, just from watching the game. But yeah, anyway, Miller, 93, he'll bounce back. He's averaging 115, so he'll bounce back next week. So Green's the one that, obviously affected most of us in getting that 5 and getting that ankle injury. So again, if you don't own him, like he dropped 38k down to 541, break even of 144. So if you don't own him, again, this is just a great opportunity to get him for, somewhere around the 520 mark, 530 mark when he eventually bottoms out. But many coaches brought him in. There would have been, a few coaches that would have brought him in anyway. And maybe not many, but I think a few did bring him in. And he scored that 5. So pretty tough for those that brought him in. But, he's a keeper. I mean, he will be a top 8 to 10 midfielder by the end of the year. This is just unfortunate. We don't know how bad the injury is. We do know that I think it was Adam Kingsley that came out and said that he actually may even play this week. They took him off as a precaution. He's had scans. There's no damage. So there's a chance he will play. So we're all really hoping he does play, considering the carnage that some of us may have in other lines. So I've got, as you can see, both Green and Rosie. But LDU, I was hoping of a better score from him, but this is what we just have to expect now with him. He will get the occasional 100, but he looks to be that 95 to 100 player, and that's just really disappointing, obviously, for owners. I certainly wouldn't be bringing him in. There's a lot of better value out there, which we'll go through later. And then Rosie, so he definitely is missing this week. So this is going to be a challenge for me, because if both Green and Rosie are missing, and they're only probably going to be missing for a week at least, maybe 2 max, I don't really want to be trading them. And to be bringing on, say, Rogers or Clark, or if Carroll comes on, I mean, that's going to massively impact my score. So I've got a lot of things to think about here. I was happy with Marshall. He came back and put in a good performance. Got to watch this game. He actually looked really good. He didn't look hampered by any injury. He was moving around, tackling, marking. So he scored that 107, and he'll just build and get better from here. But I think if you don't own him and you're wanting a ruckman, 504k is dirt cheap for someone like Marshall. He's got a break even of 117, so you could even technically hold for another week, but we'll go through the scores later. And then, Gorn, so that was also very, very lucky. Some of us, obviously initially I had Heaney as my captain. At the last minute when I saw the weather, I thought I'll VC Green, and that didn't work out. And then Gorn's score, he started terribly and did not look like getting anywhere near that 111. And so pretty fortunate to be able to get that 111. I was thinking of captaining Bont as well. I knew he was going to score big against Hawthorn, and I thought, but Gorn against Geelong, where they don't even really have a ruckman, that 111 is actually really disappointing in the end. Gorn should have smashed Geelong, but just got the 111. And I guess as a captain score, you take it. It's better than having Green as your captain and getting 5. Pretty okay. I wouldn't say pretty happy, but just okay with that. And then so Heaney got that 109 again. Probably expected to get higher than that considering the way he started. Flanders played so well. He really stood out in that game for Gold Coast. He was everywhere. He was tackling. He's got a great role. And the 120, averaging 117 now, got a 128. So Jackson, I've decided to hold on to. I know that he's going to continue getting scores like this. Yes, Sean Darcy was subbed off, but I think it was just a precaution, just managing his minutes and resting him. So I think Sean Darcy will play this week. But yeah, Jackson, unfortunately, like I think in the games last year that Jackson played with Sean Darcy, Jackson averaged, I think it was about 87. So that's what I guess we can expect. He got an 86 this round, and I guess we can expect him to average around that amount. But I've just held on to him because I just feel there's no one really else in the forward line. I'm holding out. Maybe there might be some good forwards at the next DPP change. The other thing too is Jackson will come in handy during the buys, because there's a chance Soldo comes back when the buys begin in round 12, and that means we just have to trade Sweet out at that point. And so having Jackson as a backup will be good, because then I can obviously play him for Marshall and Gawn. Anyway, that's how I'm looking at it, and that's why I've kept Jackson. So Reed got a 59, obviously not as good as what we had planned there, but look, hopefully he plays this week. I think he was also managed as well as a precaution, but yeah, we'll see anyway tomorrow with the injury report. Darcy Wilson, just another ton. That's 2 tons in a row now, just extremely unexpected. So that's 2 tons in a row. That's right. He only got an 88. I got confused with McKercher. Yeah, so an 88 last week, but then now 126. So his break even is now negative 25, and he's made 202k. So he's an absolute keeper and really does come in handy now for us to play on the ground. I mean, I had to play him on my ground, so I was lucky to get his score. Some had him on the bench, even McKercher on the bench, that weren't able to get their scores, and I was very fortunate to be able to get McKercher's and Wilson's score. That's what really helped my score, obviously, in the end. So Darcy had a pretty average game, but his break-even's only 42, so you can still hold on to him. And that's what I will be doing, and I'll be playing him on the ground. I'll go through a bit of that, probably loopholing Garcia, maybe if Reed doesn't play. Anyway, there's a fair bit to work out as far as that goes. But yeah, so moving through some of the suspensions and injuries, there wasn't really any SuperCoach relevant players that were suspended. But certainly, obviously, a few injuries, and so we'll go through each of the matches now, and as we're going through it, we'll discuss some of these injuries and players we can trade in, because there are some good value picks that we have, if not this week, then in the next few weeks. So looking at some of these games. So we'll start with obviously the game back on Thursday night, Adelaide and Port Adelaide. So Saligo continues to just dominate in his last few games. He's getting so much mid-time. If we have a look at the CBAs there, so he got the most CBAs on the ground, 81% CBAs as far as midfielders go. Crouch 71, Laird 71, Dawson 47, and this time Rankin only 23, so he dropped off a little. But it really showed with Saligo. So if we have a look at his last few rounds, so that's a 128, a 98, a 97, a 91, and a 146. So in that time, he's gone up. What's that? 30, 50, 70. So he's gone up like nearly 100k just in those few games. And his break even is 47, and he's only 499k. It looks like, so what's he's averaging 88, but yeah, again, last 5 a 112 average, last 3 a 111 average. So if you're game to bring him on, he's got the role. And I don't think he'd be owned by many. So he's only owned by 1% of teams. So he's a pod. If you want to bring in a pod, I think Saligo, it's a big gamble, but I think Saligo could be an option. So Matt Crouch, 124, and that was due to his disposal efficiency, 85, 7 tackles. So yeah, he scored quite well. Rory Laird, so a 98, but was very fortunate to get to that. His first half wasn't the best, but ended up with 27 possessions, 7 tackles. And that helped him to get near to that. But with Dawson, so yeah, as I said, very quiet first half. But the issue again with Dawson, which has been for most of his games this year, is he lost 24 points. Oh, sorry, not 24, 16 points in clangers. So that obviously hurt, but what hurt even more was only 54% disposal efficiency. That's been his issue all year for most of his games, is his disposal efficiency and his clangers. So, hopefully next week he can rectify that, but at least, he's getting the ball, 5 marks, 5 tackles, that's all good. 8 contested possessions, 5 clearances, so that's all good. He just needs to be a bit more accurate with his kicking and handballing, and I think he can do that. But yeah, for the rest of the Adelaide team, so Rankin still scored a 93, which is pretty good. I mean, that's just due to his 3 goals that he did kick. So if you were owning Rankin, that was very fortunate that he ended up with that score. Daniel Curtin came on, but then he was subbed off, or he started and then was subbed off for his first game, scored a 43. And that was only in 56% game time. So that's actually pretty good. So let's see if he is named next week and, hopefully plays a full game. I think they just managed him in this game, his first game. And yeah, hopefully he could be a potential cash cow for us next week. So with Port, it was their usual suspects. So Ollie Wines came up with a 116, and he continues to put out some decent scores of late. So that's so a 110 and a 116 in his last 2 games. Zach Butters, a 124, really came through, especially with the Connor Rozee injury. So he had a pretty high break even, and that's 148. So he dropped 12k this week, but his break even's 148 still. So if we're lucky, we might be able to get him around that 600k mark, maybe. But we'll see. But yeah, he's definitely finishing as a top 8 mid this year. So we do need to get him in at some point if we really want to boost our midfield. So Jordan Sweet, 74, not as great as he was last week, but that's fine because he's there to make cash. So now some of you may have actually traded Marshall to Sweet, or you've got Sweet at R2. So that 74 is not what you expected, but I think as a cash cow, we're pretty happy with him. He made 86k just this week, and his break even is still negative 71. So as a cash cow, we're pretty happy with having him in our team. Horn Francis, an 84. So he's been disappointing. I really was expecting, especially after his first 2 games, I was expecting a lot more from him. To be honest, because he's got a good role. But yeah, the scores of 93, 86, 97, 84. So it looks like that's where he's going to be at, around that 90 mark. And that's, I think, a lot of it's to do with the fact that they're rotating their midfielders through there. But with Rozee out this week, then they might get more midfield time for Port. So if we have a look at the way Port are rotating their midfielder. So Butters had 90% CBA, so he was their main midfielder. And then Wines 57%, Drew 52, Rozee 47, Horn Francis 42. I don't think we were expecting Drew to get as many CBAs. I think we all thought it'd just be Butters, Wines, Rozee, and Horn Francis. But the fact that Drew's rotating through there, taking some of the CBAs away from some of these other players, is impacting their score. So Horn Francis only 42%, but that will obviously increase this week with Rozee being out of the team. So yeah, as I mentioned, Rozee only a 53. He was doing all right because that was in 51% game time. But unfortunately copped that little injury. Again, the same injury. I think it was on the same hamstring or the other leg. I can't remember. But anyway, the main thing there is that we know he's out this week, and so that's not great for Rosie owners like myself. But I think he's only out for the week. I think Hinckley did say that they should have just rested him this week because he needs that week off to rest and to fix that issue. So I'm guessing 1 week, 2 max for Rosie. So moving on to the Carlton-Collingwood game, and Carlton had a few players there that performed average. We expected more, I guess. I mean, Newman came out with a 148, and he had a great score. Just look, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 6 defender, but he's averaging 95. But I think with some of these injuries that Carlton have, we'll keep an eye on Newman. It's 116, 82, and 148 now in his last 3 games. But unfortunately, Walsh just a 91. So a lot of that is due to the fact, because he did have 33 possessions and 20 kicks, but a lot of that was due to the fact that he had 5 clangers. So he's lost 20 points there and only 60% disposal efficiency. So he could have easily, got that 110, 115. But he'll come good again next week. And then just going through their team. So Cripps only a 68 considering how well he's been playing recently. Williams really has to go now. So he was eventually subbed off because of hamstring issues. We'll see how he goes this week, but he still scored a 60, which I guess is respectable. But I would say that his he lost like 9k this round, break even of 47. So look, technically that's still pretty low. I mean, if you need to keep him, I guess you can, but yeah, he's getting close to obviously losing money now, so it is probably time to start moving him on. Then looking through over to Collingwood, there really only is one player to look at, and that is Dacos. So he scored that 150 this round, went up 34k. So obviously last week was the week to get him in, last week and the week before. So if you don't own him, so 74% do own him, but his break even is 78. So if you really want to get him in your team, now is the week, particularly with West Coast coming up, and that's at Marvel, I think. You'd expect him to have a pretty big score, especially with Yo potentially being out. It's one less premium midfielder that they have. Then you'd expect Dacos, especially the way that Collingwood played in that game, and looked like sort of they had their game style back again. So expect a decent score from Dacos this week. But aside from that, no one really. Collingwood doesn't really have any relevant players except for Lockie Sullivan. So he scored a 75, came in as the sub. So after Beau McCreary copped that knee to the face, he came in and scored 75 in 43% game time. So he had 10 possessions, 5 tackles, kicked a goal as well, no clangers, and 80% disposal efficiency. He's one we absolutely have to look at for next week. Now, we also have to remember that Tom Mitchell and Jordan De Goey are out of this team, so how does that impact Sullivan? And considering they were out and he started as the sub. Now, after this game, will he actually start on the ground, and what is his job security like? Well, again, these are some of the questions. That's why I think it's probably best to wait, not jump on now, but wait till he's on the bubble and reassess then. I think Tom Mitchell likely will come back this week. Jordan De Goey may be one more week away. So it's probably best to wait and see if he gets named next week to pick him as a rook. But he's, I think he's a 120. He's a 102 mid. It would be great if we could pick him, but yeah, I just don't think the job security's there this week. He will play this week, I believe, but let's wait till he's on the bubble. Quickly moving on to the Sydney and GWS game. And so for Sydney, Brodie Grundy, again, it's just the up and down season with Grundy. But nevertheless, he's still averaging 112. So for all of us that traded him out, to think that we had him at 481k, and now he's 584k and averaging 112. So I guess for owners, you're holding on. I mean, if you look at his past few scores, you got like a 99, 114, 93, 158, 83, 143. He just loves playing at the SCG, tends to score quite well at the SCG. So, but yeah, anyway, a good score from Grundy, and he certainly would make his owners very happy. Isaac Heaney, only a 109. Remember, Parker is not in this team, and Parker had an awesome game in the reserves this week. That's 2 good games from him. Highly likely he'll be brought back into the team. So let's see the impact Parker will have on this team in the midfield. But Heaney still had 26 possessions, 6 tackles, kicked a goal, 18 contested, predominantly playing in the midfield if we have a look at the CBAs. For this game. So Heaney had 92% CBAs, the most of any midfielder. So they're still playing him in the midfield, but again, let's just see how he goes with Parker back into this side. So Goulden, a 95, and that was massively impacted. He should have scored more than that. He had 29 possessions, but 23 were kicks. So, and he kicked a goal. So you would have expected he'd have a pretty high score, 12 contested possessions. But he had 10 clangers. He lost 40 points just in clangers and had 51% disposal efficiency. Can you imagine how massive his score would have been had that only been 1 or 2 clangers and a 70% disposal efficiency? So for owners, yeah, just one that you write off just purely because of his disposal efficiency. But I guess for non-owners, he lost 12k, dropped down to 575k now, and his break-even's 119, which he can very easily get that. But yeah, 575 is a really good price for Goulden, considering that he started at 622, so he's dropped 46k overall. So he is an option. Looking through any other really relevant plays to talk about. So Matt Roberts only scored a 50, but that was only in 63% game time. So he didn't actually play a lot of time on the ground like he normally does. And I guess there'll be a reason for that. But yeah, 50 I guess is a bit disappointing. So now if we have a look at him, he went up 6k still, but his break even is now 107. Now, this is the question I guess we have to ask ourselves. Do we hold on to him because he can actually score? He's had scores of 94, 98, 80, 117, 80. Like, they're all pretty good scores. So either, I guess the option is to cash him out now because he's got a break even of 107 and he may lose cash this week, or we just hold on to him and hope that he scores well and then maybe upgrade some of our other rookies that are ready to be cashed out who don't score as well as Roberts does. So we've got a couple of options there, what we do with Roberts. And then with the Giants, again, as I mentioned, I think a week or two ago, Finn Callahan, he continues to score well, playing a lot of time in that midfield. So 44% CBAs in the midfield there, but Peatling had 63% CBAs, likely stepped in for Green, and as a result scored a 116. But yeah, we obviously are not really counting on that from him every week. But Finn, keep an eye on him, probably not this year, but definitely next year. So Josh Kelly, a 95 for those, he's a pod, a little bit low on his average for the year. Darcy Jones, another 70 from him. So this is a really good sign, and we need a good rookie forward. So that's 2 scores of roughly 70. So he's averaging 72. Break even of negative 75. So he is probably the number one rook to bring in. I know for myself, I was a little bit concerned how he would perform with Toby Green back in the team. But he performed really well, had 14 possessions, kicked a goal, and even that was just with 64% game time, but still scored that 70. So if he can get that 60 to 70, I mean, he's making money for us. So I think if we need a rookie, he's probably the rookie to bring in this week. I think some might have gone early on him, but I think if you need a rookie, he's probably the one to bring in for this week. So Cadman is 65, so I think he might have made a little bit of money, 6k, break even of 49. So yeah, you can definitely still hold on to him. I figured, I guess, with the players that I actually had and the money I needed for Bond, I kind of figured Cadman was that player to trade out. So I'm still pretty happy with trading him out. But if you have him and you've got other things to worry about, well, you can still hold on to him because he should still get his break even, you'd think. I think for those that had Jacob Ware, so there's only 7% that he owned, but he's still making a little bit of cash every week. 4k he's gone up, break even of 45. So again, if you need to hold on to him, you can, but he's done his job, he's made his money. So Lockie Whitfield was obviously tagged, and so Jordan, who's been running with players in the last few weeks there, I think Jordan tagged last week as well. And Whitfield does not handle tags very well, so only scored a 54, and had the 4 clangers, 68% disposal efficiency. So obviously that hurts Whitfield owners, but he's not putting that out every week. It's only just because he got tagged. So next week he'll be fine, should put up a ton because he's actually been having a really good season. If we have a look at his season there, so some pretty good scores. 108, 118, 124, 87, 109, 85, 125. So it's just that 54 last week. And so for non-owners, he's gone down 20k. He's down to 523k, which is pretty cheap. And his break even's 119. So he could achieve that. But if you need to bring in a defender, I mean, he's certainly an option for this week. Harvey Thomas of 43, I guess as a cash cow, I think there are a few that still own him. So 11%, yep. So break even of 33. He went down 2k this week, but break even of 33. So, you can worry about other rooks that you have in your team. And then as I mentioned, Tom Green, so a 144 break even for him now. He dropped 38k. He's 541k. We know with Tom Green that they did mention that it's there's no injury. He had a scan. There's no damage or anything. So he could very likely play this week. For all owners, we're all really hoping he does play this week. We don't want to have another premium out of our team because of injury. So let's hope he gets up. How well he'll play, who knows? But nevertheless, still a warm body on the field. Tom Green, still, even injured, has the potential to at least ton up. So let's hope he plays. But for non-owners, 144 break even. You'd expect him to drop this week. Let's have a look. GWS plays against Essendon, and that's likely at Marvel Stadium, I believe. So I think where are we? So look, he's not going to get tagged or anything. Maybe Durham will run with him, but hopefully he plays this week, and he definitely has the potential to score quite well. So that's I guess for non-owners. Wait till he bottoms out and then bring him in for low 500s is absolute value. So the St Kilda and North Melbourne game. So fortunately, some of these Saints players, I think anyone that plays against North is going to score and score big. If you have a look at the Saints, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players ton up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 players in the 90s. So they absolutely took full advantage playing against North, and North once again just really looked second rate. So how much do you rate players scoring against North? because it's, Sinclair got a 134, for example. He top scored. Now, does it mean that he's kind of back to his best? It's hard to say. His last couple of weeks have been pretty good, a 113 and a 134. Sinclair went up 8K this week, break even of 59. So if you're wanting a defender to bring in and you feel that Sinclair obviously is, back in form, it looks like he is back in form. But yeah, the last two games, his last game there was against Port at Adelaide Oval, so that was a really good score for him. Again, I just really worry with, Wanganeen Malira, with Bonner, with Sinclair sharing the ball around. But, having said that, Wanganeen Malira got a 115, Darcy Wilson a 126. So Wanganeen Malira dropped 4K. He's down to 481K, break even of 77. I wouldn't really recommend bringing him in. I mean, I did bring him in. But I think, he's probably going to average around that 100 point. I mean, I see him obviously as a D6. I mean, any defender I bring in now, I'm going to try to bring in obviously someone I want for the season. We'll get to Luke Ryan in a moment. But yeah, look, he is an option. But Darcy Wilson, as I mentioned before, just so happy with him. Negative 25, break even now. And he will continue to make cash for us because of these scores that he's had in the last couple of weeks. The surprise packet, of course, was Jack Hayes, but once again, it was against North Melbourne. So he's only 228K, but scored a 115, and he's got a negative 26 break even. He's going to play next week, and it looked like he didn't really hamper Rowan Marshall all that much. When you have a look at the hitouts, Rowan Marshall had 20 hitouts, whereas Jack Hayes only had the 3. And if we look at the CBAs, Marshall still had 72% CBAs and Hayes had the 27%. So normally Marshall is a lot higher than that. So obviously Hayes is taking over a little bit. But I think based on the way that Hayes played, I reckon that Hayes will probably spend more time up forward. He did kick the 2 goals there. And I reckon they're going to like that ruck tandem of Marshall and Hayes. So, yeah, Marshall's score is going to be impacted now with Hayes in the team. We do have to keep that in mind. Good to see Jack Steele come out with a 112. And that's, considering we were worried a little bit about the potential strapping on his leg. But for owners, you've been pretty happy with that. For non-owners, very keeping a close eye on Jack Steele. 140 break even, went down 34K. He's 566K now, and to get someone, I guess, who's averaging what he's averaging, because he started at 529K and got up to 630 after round 6, and now he's back down to 566K. He'll lose more money this week. And we may be able to get a player like Jack Steele, who's averaging 114, and get him in the mid to low 500s. So that is really good value. So let's keep an eye out for him. So Windhager again, a 111. So he continues to put up scores like up and down, I guess, because he's playing a lot of time in the midfield. He did have 58% CBAs, but again, we're not really looking at bringing him in. Marshall, I mentioned earlier, if you want to bring in a ruckman, that's cheap, but you have to take into account Hayes coming into that team. Riley Bonner, a 98. So yeah, as I mentioned last week, probably ready to upgrade, but that 98 does help. He went up 10K. His break even is 64. He's averaging 82. So unless you got other urgent matters to take care of, if you don't, then Bonner is primed to upgrade, but you can obviously still hold him as well. He's still putting up good scores, but this was against North Melbourne as well. And then so Hugo Garcia, a 58 from him. So he's gone up 34K, 73K overall, break even of 13. Just really worried about his job security. Hopefully he holds. Fortunately, he had 7 tackles. He's a big tackler, and that's what's really helped his score to at least get to something respectable. So hopefully he can keep making money for us, and then eventually we just cash him out. With North, obviously the big surprise packet there was McKercher. He's back to playing that halfback role, taking kickouts. I guess now that Sheasel is in the midfield, you've got McKercher, who's pretty much taken over. Even Zach Fisher is getting a bit of ball down back there as well. So if we have a look with McKercher, his last 2 games, a 102 and a 135. So for those who have held him, because there's still, 30% that own McKercher, he's not only scoring for us, but he's making a lot of cash for us now. So he's now down to negative 61 break even, and has gone up, 58k this week, and it's gone up 107k overall. So he's scoring and making money. So just a fantastic rookie to still have. I know some traded him out when he got injured, and that was a bit unfortunate. But for owners, he's making a lot of money and scoring. So Sherry continues on his merry way and scoring. He is now averaging 111. So well done to you all for starting with him and holding on to him. There's 11% that own him. If you have a look at his scores, just fantastic. So a 133, second highest score for the year. A 144, 103, 133 in his last 3 games. Just fantastic. Sherry, and he's a keeper. He has to be a keeper. Averaging a ruck averaging 111 is a keeper for sure. So we were, I think, initially looking at trading him, but definitely not now. LDU a 90. I won't talk much about him because he's lowly owned, but I would not be recommending to get onto him if he bottoms out. That's for sure. Sheasel, I mentioned already, a 73. So having a look at the CBAs there, Sheasel still only had 44% CBAs. So he's not playing exclusively in the midfield. It's obviously rotating midfield and half back, but just not that great. He had, normally he kicks a lot more than he handballs, but he had 24 possessions and had 15 of those were handballs, which didn't help. And obviously what also hurt, he had 24 clangers, 24 points, that is, in clangers that he lost, and only 62% disposal efficiency, which that's not like Sheasel at all. I would imagine that a lot of that was probably in the midfield under pressure, but hopefully next week he plays a little bit more down back. For Powell owners, so Powell, let's see. So Powell lost 20k this week, even though he scored a 71, break even of 104. We don't have many options down back, so it's up forward. So it's understandable that you may want to hold on to him because he's got the potential to score, but he is losing a bit of cash, high break even. It's understandable to trade him out. So Comben, another score of 52. He's been a really disappointing pick after that first game. There's 23% that own him. They are obviously, a lot of players jumped on. But if we have a look at his scores now, after that 129, then a 75, and now 55, 61, 52. Really disappointing. He lost a K this week. Break even of 56. Obviously, for those that own him, you want to hope that he gets that, but he's only made 70k, so he's been a bust, unfortunately, unless he obviously just gets a really good score this week, like some other rooks have done, like McKercher, for example, and then is able to regenerate some more cash. So Riley Hardiman scored a 37 and was subbed off. I don't think we would be considering him, even though he is on the bubble, and he's playing halfback. But yeah, Darcy Jones would definitely be that one to bring in if you don't already own him. Drury, some may have brought him in. He's been really disappointing. Toby Pink came on just for 9 points. These kinds of players are not really doing much for us. Melbourne and Geelong. So this is a very interesting game for one reason, and that is, a few reasons, but definitely Clayton Oliver. So we heard a couple of weeks ago when they had the bye that he had his thumb surgery, he's training well, doing well, all that kind of thing. And I think the first game back, which was last week, was like a real build-up to, I guess, him getting his form back and feeling really good and getting back to his form again because he doesn't have that injury and he's got the match fitness now. And I think that showed this week. He scored a 141, 31 possessions, 7 marks, 4 tackles, 17 contested possessions. Only the 4 clangers, so he did lose 16 points there, but 80% disposal efficiency. So that's what's really helped his score. I actually think Clayton Oliver's back. In watching some of this game, he did look like back to his normal self. And so this is the question I think we'll all have to ask ourselves. Do we bring him in this week? Do we wait another week? He actually went up 10K. I don't think we all expected Oliver to have scored what he did. But went up 10K, but he is 476K. If we feel that Oliver is going to average that 105, 110 at the very least from here on in, then he is a bargain at 476K. His break-even's 48. So if you're going to get him in, now is the time to bring him into your side. He is definitely in my trade plans. I know there's a few that I am thinking of bringing in, but Oliver definitely is one of them. I only have 1 spot left for premiums to bring in, but obviously when you have a look at my premiums, ones like LDU and so forth, I mean, I'll obviously be upgrading him at some point, but for now, I'll be looking at trying to fix up my team elsewhere before looking at LDU, so I can always upgrade LDU later. But Oliver, I think, he is a primo. He's an uber premium, and I think that he is one absolutely a target to bring in this week. So for those that own Caleb Windsor, you would have been so happy with that because he was looking like it was time to move him on. But he scored a 118. He had 18 possessions, but 6 marks, 6 tackles, 1 goal, and 83% disposal efficiency. Hardly any clangers, just 2. So he had a 118, and he went up 34K, negative 18 break even. So for the 24% that own him, you would have been wrapped with that. And now you're going to be able to earn a lot more cash off him. And he hopefully will eventually get up to that 150K mark, which is what we want to earn from our rookies. So Max Gawn, lucky to get that 111 in the end, but he is a beast and he came back really well in that second half. And obviously not going to put it down to anything. I mean, his disposal efficiency was 56%. That's where he lost a lot of his points. He had 16 points he lost in clangers as well. So that's not every week for Maxi, so we don't have to worry about anything for owners. There might be some looking at wanting to bring him in still, even though they may have an English or a Sherry or a Marshall or a Grundy. And he did go down, well, he went up actually 3K, but his break-even's 133. That really doesn't matter to Maxi because he could easily get that. Petrarca is the other interesting one along with Oliver. So Petrarca dropped 42K this round. He's down now to 551K and he's lost 115K overall. Now we know he is a 120 plus average player. His break-even is 127. He could potentially get that this week, but you could maybe hold on 1 more week and then look to bring him in. When we have a look at his score, he only scored 94 this week and he only had 21 possessions, but a lot of that, the impact on his score was that his disposal efficiency was at 57%. Lost 12 points as well from clangers. He can still potentially score. You expect him to get back up to that 110, 120 average, but to get him at under 550K is absolute value for Petrarca. So you may want to hold on, see maybe he might not get that 127 this week, his break even, and then pick him up next week. Then so Blake Howes and Tajwa Wodeman. We'll go with Blake Howes. So he scored a 48. I think he's still owned by a few 30%. So yeah, so he continues to make money. 23K he went up this week. Break even of 24. So you're holding and let him make more cash for you. And then Woden. So he is now. Maybe, well, he's 177k, I guess. I won't really bother with him. Only 1% owned, so he's probably not worth talking about. And then there was, so Daniel Turner, I think, was one that some may have been considering because he was on the bubble and he did have a good game. He had a 101 in round 7, but then only a 20 this week. So, yes, he's on the bubble, negative 12 break even, but to only score 20 and 70% time on ground, I wouldn't be confident picking him. Having said that, with Jake Rogers, if his scores were reversed as well, how many would have jumped on him on the bubble? Because he had like a 20 or a 30 or something in his first game and then a 98 in his second. So there's 21% that actually own Jake Rogers. So there's a few that jumped on him. But anyway, something to think about with Turner. But Turner's 191k. So again, like I said, Darcy Jones is probably the one there. And then Tom Stewart, a 104. We're all keeping our eyes on Tom Stewart as non-owners. As owners, obviously you're holding because he's a top 6 defender. But he went down 14k this week. He's got a break-even of 132. So for me, he is primed to bring in next week. And that's what I'll likely be doing. If I can actually get him for close to 500k as a defender, then I'll be ecstatic with that. So I'll probably be looking at upgrading to him next week. Maybe upgrading Closey. Closey's got a break-even of 58. Let's hope he can. He's made 189k, so we were expecting the way he started that he would make 300k, but his last few scores haven't been great. Hopefully he can get that 58 break even this week, and then he'll be primed to upgrade to Tom Stewart next week. So that's an option. Fortunately for those who still own Jai Clark, like myself, he's still 38% owned because we've just had other things to do, but he actually got his break even. Couldn't believe it. So he went up 1k this week. He's got a -1 break even because he actually had a decent game. So he scored a 78. He had 8 kicks, 6 handballs. He had 2 marks, 3 tackles, but he kicked a goal, which really helped. 10 contested possessions, which is great. And that's what really helped him get to his 78. So if he can get, I know this is asking a lot, but if he can get that 70 average from here on, then that would be awesome. He would actually make money, and that's what we need, because like for myself, I've got Carroll and Clark, and they're doing nothing. So Carroll, I don't even know if he's going to get a game again. So, but for Clark, if he can make some cash now, that would be awesome. So Dempsey scored a 66. So he may have what did he get? So he dropped 900k. So I traded him out this week. I just don't know how much money he's going to continue to make. Got a break even of 54. Has the potential to score, but he's really dropped off in his past few games. He started so well, but then from round 5, he's scored a 56, 53, 49, 66. So, I'm not too sure. I guess for owners, you're really hoping he has like a really big game just to regenerate that cash again. But you can definitely trade him out. I mean, I traded him out this week or last week. He's definitely an option to trade. And then that's probably it for the Geelong game. For West Coast and Essendon, so we've got going through West Coast. I guess the main concern there is Elliot Yeo, minor groin issue. Let's hope that he only misses a week. It would be a miracle if he plays this week, but there's a chance he'll miss a week, but obviously a chance he'll miss 2 weeks. So, but fortunately for us, still scored an 80. Could have been a lot worse. He could have scored a 5 like Green, but at least he got 80 points, which did help. I mean, he got that 80 points in 50% game time. Unbelievable, can't believe it. So he was, on track to get like a monster score, and unfortunately had that injury, and had to get taken off. I guess they're very wary of Yo. They don't want to risk anything with him. So it's understandable they took him off. And the same thing with Harley Reid. So he had a bit of a hamstring issue. and then he scored a 59. Didn't really perform all that well. Disposal efficiency of 57. Let's hope that it was just a little bit of tightness. But when something like that happens to one of their star players, like a rookie player as well, it's likely they'll probably rest him again. But let's hope that he's good enough to come and play this week, because we really do need him to step up. His break-even's only 42, so he can definitely achieve that. But yeah, he continues to score well for us and make money. Let's hope he plays this week. And yeah, that's probably about it as far as relevance goes. And then for the Bombers, so Darcy Parish. Now, we said last week, would Parish actually play a good game outside of Anzac Day? So he's come out and scored a 148. Now, again, he's at Anzac Day, which he's known to score well in, and he's at the West Coast. So that's a 148 he scored this week, had a monster game. So 2 good games in his last 2 weeks. He went up 35k, and his break-even's 28, and he's 528k. He's got the potential to average, 110 to 115. But the Bombers have, I think I mentioned it before, they have GWS this week, so a tougher opponent. But the game's at Marvel. So I guess if you really want Parish, this is the week to bring him in, because his break-even's only 28. And 528k is pretty low for Parish. So he is good value. But obviously you've got other players like Petrarca, Oliver, a few others as well that are quite cheap that you could potentially bring in. I'm not personally considering him, but he is an option. Nick Martin, once again, a 122. Once again continues to remind me of why I should not have traded him out. So he went up 14k, break even of 91, but yeah, we're not worried about that because he is a top 6 defender. He's averaging 110, averaging 120 in his last 3, 118 in his last 5. Just, yeah, absolute star, and he's doing all the things that I thought he would when I picked him at the start of the year, and just a stupid move to trade him out. For his 22% owners, you can walk tall with your chest puffed out because he is a top 6 defender. So if you started with him, well done. Zach Merritt, the 121, just continues on. I say this every week with Zach Merritt, just continues on as the probably number 1 or at least top 3 mids in the comp. So he's averaging 124, we're hoping to try to get him in at some point, but we're going to have to pay premium dollars to get Zach Merritt in. And if you started with him, you're obviously ecstatic with that. And then for Caldwell, I think there were some that brought him in, but unfortunately he got subbed out. Had a bit of, calf tightness. But he scored that 58 in 49% game time. So he was actually playing quite well before he got subbed out. We'll have to see whether he plays this week, if there's any damage to the calf, if he gets scans. But he's been playing really well of late. The 129, the 100. Just let's see his ownership. It's only 2%. Okay, so we might just move on. Looking at the Richmond and Freo game, and there's not really a lot to talk about with Richmond. There's no one really there. Obviously, some rooks, some might have. Campbell, Lafau didn't really do all that well. Jaden Short, a 115, but I'm not touching Jaden Short. Let's talk about who we really needed to be talking about, and that is Luke Ryan, a 197, a monster scored. For his owners, I know 197 you're happy with, but you're probably hoping that he could get a tackle or something like that just to clock that 200. But, we were all hoping with his high break even that he would actually drop a little bit for non-owners to bring him in. But a 197, went up 15K. His break even 64. He's going to go up even higher now. He's obviously the number one defender we need to be bringing in. He's averaging 133. So how we're going to get him in, I don't know. But for owners, 14% of owners there. You're obviously really, really happy with that. Caleb Sarong, a 137, and Hayden Young, a 130. Hayden Young's the interesting one. Actually, let's just have a quick look at Sarong. So Sarong's got a break even of 87 now. He went up 18K. I guess if you're wanting to bring him in, because he's averaging 129, so he's another premium that we really need to have. Look, even though I'm regretting trading Nick Martin out, I've actually traded him out for Sarong, and Sarong's actually doing quite well as well. So I guess I'm not too disappointed. I am disappointed still, but not as much because Caleb Sarong's actually doing quite well. But Hayden Young is the interesting one. So do you think Hayden Young is going to be a top 6 defender? Because he's averaging 100 and just having a look at his scores, because he had a good patch there in the middle. He had a 132, 119, 114, then a 79, and then now a 94 and a 130. So it looks like he's kind of back. They were playing Richmond. That's the other thing. So we can't think too much about it. But he's at 535 now with a break even of 81. So he could also be an option to be bringing in as a defender. Andrew Brayshaw, a 107, not bad. Jordan Clark, a 105. I mentioned Luke Jackson, an 86. So Heath Chapman, an 84. I think we're all going to start him. So he's got a break even of -7, but he's 251K. I don't think we're going to be bringing him in. He's had scores of 66 and 84. But yeah, I think if we're bringing anyone in, we want to be bringing in primos now. And then Jeremy Sharp, so he scored an 80, and some would have probably traded him out last week or this week. And so for his owners, he went up 2K, break even of 62, but to get that 80 obviously really helped his scoring and his future cash flow as well. Sean Darcy I mentioned, and so Nat Fife. Okay, so Fife, so he started as the sub, and that really did impact a lot of teams, especially because it was kind of last minute. He was a sub when we found out. A lot of teams weren't able to really change him or trade him or swap him. Some kept him on the team, on the field, hoping that he would be traded. He would be subbed in at halftime and still score better than whoever you had on your bench. But unfortunately, only scored a 17. Now, I think for Fife, though, if you've got him in your forward line, it's not really about cash projection or cash flow anymore with him, because he's averaging 81. I mean, he was averaging 90 before this. And you're probably holding him to the buys, I would imagine. If I had him in my team, I wouldn't be trading him out, even though his break-even's 102, because he still has the potential to score well, and we're pretty bare in our forward lines. So I would be holding still. And it's very likely that he will play next week. They have, where are we? They've got Sydney this week. And they had to obviously, travel back home and have that game in 6 days or so. So yeah, understandable. They've started him as a sub, but I reckon he'll start in the midfield this coming week. And then the other one was Cooper Simpson. We were hoping that he would do well and be a cash cow this week, but he only scored a 17 in 72% game time, so he's no longer an option. Still, again, it is Darcy Jones as that option to bring in. And then with the Bulldogs and Hawks game, so Bont, a 142, so he's gone up now in price, went up 10K, break even of 111. He's only 623K, so he's still affordable considering he's averaging 119, and he'll average probably more than that by the end of the year. He was playing Hawthorn, and this week they play Richmond. So you would expect that he is going to score monstrously large. You look at some of these other players that have played against Richmond in the past, and there's been some big scores. You'd expect Bont to really go beast mode in this game. English are 135, so he continues to put up these big scores. He's probably gone beyond that point now. He's got as low in his price. Where did he get down to? He got as low as $5.91, which was last week, and that was really the time to bring him in. But he went 21k. He went up this week. Break even of 80. I guess if you really want to bring him in at 612k, you can. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper than what he started, because he was about 714k or 715, I think he started with. So. But yeah, he's putting up the big scores that we're used to. How about Bailey Dale? So he's kind of coming from nowhere. He's taking the kick-ins. He's getting that loose ball at half back. For those that brought him in, you'd be really wrapped with that. His last 3 games, 175, 132, 116. So it looks like he could very well end up being a top 6 to 8 defender if he keeps this role. So he's 532k now. And his break even's 55. So, I mean, if you really feel that he's going to be averaging, 110 from here on in, then he's definitely worth a look at, averaging 141 in his last 3 games. And then Jack McRae in 81. I reckon that's pretty much McRae. I mean, he got that 81 in 70% game time, so that's pretty good. But I think, we're long gone are the days where he's getting, 110 every week. But I personally wouldn't be bringing him in. Libba, again, copped a bit of an injury. Will he play this week? There's a chance he still could, but they might give him a rest for a week as well. But he only scored an 80, unfortunately, for his owners. He's owned by 5% of the comp. I think if you're looking at trying to get a premium at a cheap price, when he's fit and ready and able to come back, we might be able to get him cheap. His break-even's 169. So let's see what he gets down to when he bottoms out. Riley Garcia ended up scoring a 66. There might have been some that brought him in because he was on the bubble, and there were 18%. And they were rewarded. 66 is pretty good in 74% game time. Negative 22 break even. 64k he went up. So let's see if he makes his owners any money. So Sam Darcy, I mentioned, a 49, but break even of 42, so you're still holding on him. But yep, you can trade him out if you need to get a premium. And then they had Charlie Clark come in, who didn't score anything. That's amazing. He had 6 possessions and scored nothing. But moving on to Hawthorn. So Sicily with a 109, but again, we've got to see if he plays this week. He had that dislocated shoulder that they popped back in. But he's just not scoring the way that he was scoring. We're all still waiting for Hawthorn to get some actually key position defenders back in. But, last 3 games, 100, 105, 109. He went up 4 to 5k this week. Break even of 92. So 538k, yeah, I guess, you could bring him in. But, if you're bringing in a Sicily, you're really wanting him to be putting up those, 110, 120 games, and he's just not doing that at the moment. So for those that brought in Lloyd Meek as a cash cow, boy, you guys would be really happy with that. So he scored another ton this week, and he got a 106, break even of 59. He's gone up 119k overall, so you're holding on to him till he bottoms out. So that was a good pick in the end. He's going to end up making that 150k, and that's the risk, when you bring in some of these guys that are around 200, 250, 300k. The worry is, are they going to make that 150k that we need them to make? And more often than not, that they generally don't. But Meek is actually doing that, and that's great for his owners. And then through the rest of the Hawks team, so D'Ambrosio has got to go, just has to go now. And then going to the last game, Brisbane and Gold Coast, which was a really disappointing game to watch. But Neil a 168, Dunkley a 163, and Zorko a 160. McCluggage a 139. That just gives you an idea of what this game was like and how pitiful Gold Coast was. It was really disappointing because a lot of us have Gold Coast players in our teams. So some big scores from them. And then looking at Zorko, for example, because he dropped a little bit, and we do need some forward players that are scoring. So he went up 17k with that score, and his break-even's 102. So if you really want a forward, because he actually, the week before that, he got... what did he get? He got a 56, and that's because his role changed. But Fagan put him back at half-back again, and that's what happens. He got a massive score. He had 40 possessions, 35 kicks, 16 marks. He actually also kicked 3 behinds. Imagine if they were goals. So I reckon he is a target to bring into your forward line, because if you have a look at his season, look at some of these scores: 105, a 127, a 116, and a 130, and now a 160. So I think we've been saying this for a few weeks, that he is definitely a legit option in our forward lines, because we're desperate to have someone there. And at 559k, I think he's good value. If you've got really nothing else to do, I think he is absolutely a definite option to be bringing in now. We're all worried about his body, but at halfback, it looks like his body's being protected there, I think, so he should hopefully ride out the season. So we had Bruce Revel score reveal, however you want to say that. It's 59. He scored. Let's see how he goes next week, if he plays and he's on the bubble. And then, I know they had a Logan Morrison. I won't really talk about him, but yeah, that's probably bad. And unfortunately, they copped some really bad injuries, Brisbane, so that's really tough for them for their year. They got the win, but with some of these injuries, let's I guess for their sake, let's hope that they can continue to have a good season. For Gold Coast, so Sam Flanders, he just stands out. 128, he was everywhere. You definitely need him in your team. He's at 585k now, breaking in of 100. He's going to finish top 2 forward in the year. And then with Miller, 93, he'll come back from that. He lost 16 points in clangers and 68% disposal efficiency, so he'll come back. And then Noah Anderson, the 92, again, lost 24 points in clangers, 56% disposal efficiency, so these guys will come good. Matt Rowell, so this is going to be interesting. So he scored a 65. Now he was matched up against Dunkley, and Dunkley just smashed him. But Rowell had 16 possessions, but 11 were handballs, and just did not get anywhere near the ball. So, he's going to be, obviously, that's just a one-off game. So for his owners, it sucks, especially in a week when we had so much carnage. But now for non-owners, it gives us an opportunity to get in someone like a Matt Rowell. His break-even's 159 now. So, he probably won't lose a lot. He lost 20k this week. But let's see if he can get down to around that 600k mark, and then he becomes an option for us. So, as I mentioned before about Closey and Will Graham. So, Graham went up 30k, 12 break-even. We're holding on to him and even fielding him if we have to. And then Closey, hopefully he gets his 58 break-even this week. But both of them have made a ton of cash, and we're going to definitely cash them out soon. And that's it. Jake Rogers was the other one. Really disappointing. A 21, break-even of negative 18 still. Only went up 28k. So now we're going to need a big score out of him again to get cash generation. So again, not really a great pick, but I think for this week, Darcy Jones seems to be the rookie to bring in this week. So that's all the games. Let's have a look at some players on the bubble this week, and see ones that are worth bringing in. We've kind of already mentioned a few of them, obviously. So Jack Hayes only played the one game. Let's wait till next week. Elliot Himmelberg is an interesting one. He's played 2 games now, but he's averaging 81, negative 30 break even. There's a few players that have had that, been around that 2 to 250k mark this week, that's gone on to make a fair bit of money. Lloyd Meek, as I mentioned before. So a 98 and a 65 for Himmelberg. So I guess that he's an option. And then I mentioned Chapman, and that's probably, and Darcy Jones obviously is the one for this week to bring in. Sam Day scored a 71, but didn't play this week, so yeah, no interest there. Kyle Warner actually had a pretty good game in the VFL, or in the reserves, and so he may come in. Might be a rookie in defence to choose. But yeah, I think we've talked about all the relevant players there on the bubble, and then looking, of course, at players that have the high and low break evens. Okay, so yeah, Darcy Jones -75, Sweet -71, Kircher -61, so we're all pretty happy with that. So we've got, we'll wait till if Lee Kalia gets another game, but he could be an option. Lockie Sullivan I mentioned, we'll wait till next week. So Harvey Harrison is an interesting one. So he actually looked really good in this game. So he's scored a 48 and then now an 83. So he's a 180k forward. And a -29 break even. I actually think he has got good job security. He played really well in that game anyway against Carlton. And that's probably about it, I think, for any sort of players worth considering with the low break evens. With the high break evens, so again, Will Day, eventually he'll hopefully come good. How did he go in this last game? He got 67 and a 58, so eventually he'll bottom out and he might have some good form. He could be an option to bring in. Libba will wait to bottom out, 169 break even. And then so Matt Rowell we've mentioned, but yeah, I think we've mentioned all of them. Actually, Connor Rozee is one person we didn't talk about. For non-owners, he's got a break even of 153, and he dropped 54k. He's 521k, so he's one as well for non-owners that when he comes back and he bottoms out, he could be actually under 500k, so he could be a really good option. And that's probably, I think, the other ones on this list I've already kind of mentioned. Even Sam Walsh, 146 break even. So his past few scores haven't been as well as he started. A 104 and a 91 after his bubble. And that's probably about it. Jack Steele I mentioned as well. So a lot of these guys will wait till they bottom out. So going to my team and what I'm planning to do this round. So I'll obviously have to, likely Yo will be out, so I'll have to bring in McKercher and Graham. And then Rozee definitely is out, so I'm probably going to have to bring in Rogers. I'll actually loophole one of these guys. Carroll plays on the Thursday night, so Rozee, yeah. So I can't actually loophole anyone because Rozee plays Friday, Carroll plays Thursday, so I can't actually loophole anyone. So that's really disappointing. So I guess I'll just have to pick Rogers. And then the forward line, I think the forward line will stay the same. But as far as my trades go, I'm actually thinking of upgrading Roberts just to do a straight swap to Oliver. So that's what I'm thinking at this stage. And then if I have Oliver there, then that's pretty much my midfield set. I don't have to really worry about them. I'll start looking at upgrading my defenders. I'm not actually really touching my forwards, maybe except for the exception of Zorko. Might be an option. But aside from that, it's still obviously very early. Still a lot of trades and ones to consider. As far as my captain and vice captain goes, I definitely want to have Bont as my captain. I think he'll go massive against Richmond, and I'd love to have Dakes as my vice captain. Actually, sorry, it'll be the other way around. Dakes as captain, Bont as vice captain. The only problem with that is So actually, yeah, I should be able to do it. The only problem with that is that I won't be able to have... oh, yeah, because Yo might not play. So I'll be able to use Yo and... yeah, and then swap Yo with Dacos if I have to. So yeah, I can VC Bont, and if Bont doesn't score well, or does score well, I can swap Yo with Dacos, because Yo is probably not going to play. If that doesn't work, then I may have to take the emergency off Garcia, put it on Livingston, and then swap Livingston with Reed, for example. Anyway, there's a lot to work out, but yeah, hoping that your team wasn't badly impacted this week. There's going to be a lot of changes for a lot of us, a lot of maneuvering, considering trades. We're going to be keeping a close eye this week on who's named, all these kinds of things. So it's going to be a really busy week. We need to make sure that we're on top of everything. And again, yeah, hopefully you guys can have a good weekend coming up in SuperCoach. And then I'll catch up with you again at the conclusion of round 9. See ya.